First, we have Claude Aiken from the FCC. He's the legal advisor to Commissioner Mignon Clyburn, and he joined Clyburn's staff from the FCC Office of General Counsel, where he served as Associate General Counsel and Special Advisor on Internet Law and Policy, and he's done a lot of other stuff, but we're not going to go into all the nitty-gritty details, basically. He's had every job at the FCC. We also have Cheryl Lianza, who's the founder and president of A Learned Hand, LLC. In this capacity, she serves as the policy advisor to the United Church of Christ Historic Media Advocacy Arm and is the co-chair of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Media and Telecom Task Force, one of the foremost experts on Lifeline in the space. And to Jeni Kues, who is the Vice President of Corporate Affairs for iWireless, LLC, which is a Lifeline phone provider that plans to offer broadband Lifeline throughout almost all of the country. We're very excited about that. Jennifer has 15 years of experience in the industry and is also actively involved in the Brighton Center, which is a nonprofit that creates opportunities for individuals and families to reach self-sufficiency. So first I'd like to go to you, Claude. Can you tell us a little bit about why your boss, who was one of the major vehicles who moved Lifeline forward, she really was a huge champion of this modernization effort. Why was this a priority for her? Why does she care so deeply about it?
Well, thank you. I really do need to keep it close. Well, thank you, Jessica, and thank you, NHMC, for having me here today. Like Jessica said, I'm Claude Aiken. I'm the wireline legal advisor to Commissioner Clyburn, which means Lifeline is one of the issues in my portfolio. And like Jessica said, Lifeline is an issue that that Commissioner Clyburn cares very, very deeply about and has been a tireless advocate for at the Commission. It's in line with her priorities as a commissioner of being a voice for those consumers who typically don't have a voice in government. And you see that in her advocacy on issues like inmate calling, and particularly on the issue that we're here all to talk about today, which is Lifeline. What can I say that Congresswoman Eshoo and Commissioner Rosenworcel haven't already said about the benefits of the program, and a lot of those same things are reasons why my boss was such a huge supporter of and advocate for modernization. But just to put it simply, communications connectivity is absolutely integral to functioning in a modern society, and modernization of the Lifeline program, which provides that valuable connectivity to the most vulnerable among us, basically meant two things for my boss, which was curbing waste, fraud, and abuse in the program, and bringing to bear the most vibrant platform for economic and innovative activity in our economy today, bringing the internet into the program and to make it available to those who otherwise couldn't afford it. The benefit of the former, of eliminating and curbing waste, fraud, and abuse, that's pretty evident. That means more money that's available to those legitimate consumers of the program, and a decreased pressure on ratepayers who are paying into the universal service fund. But on the latter issue, why broadband is so important, again, just to put it simply, connectivity is empowerment. Again, like the Congresswoman and the Commissioner said, there's things like calling 911, something that we take for granted every day, having that safety net in our pocket, being able to find and keep a job. Pew says that 80% of Americans who are looking for a job use the internet to either apply for or to help research their job. And as Commissioner Rosenworcel eloquently talks about the homework gap, just enabling our kids to not have to be break the cycle of intergenerational poverty, and that's something that Lifeline can really help with, and something that modernization of the Lifeline program can really help with. And those were ideas that really resonated with my boss. And I'll just share a brief story about my Commissioner Clyburn has been on her Connecting Communities tour. If you've followed her at all recently, you know all about that. And I had the privilege of going out with her to New Mexico and to Navajo Nation, where we visited tribal lands and saw what Lifeline meant to those who were living on native land. And we had the pleasure of talking to Lucienda, who was a young lady who was a member of the Navajo tribe, and suffers from a astonishing lack of infrastructure where she lives. And she said something that I think both the commissioner and I will remember until we finally bridge the digital divide, that without Lifeline, her community would be living in the 1800s. And so that's really what it means to my boss to see this program move forward.
Thank you so much, Claude. I'm going to go to Cheryl, and I'm going to throw her a curveball.
Okay.
Maybe not really a curveball. Cheryl, can you tell us a little bit about how Lifeline has worked in the past and what's going to change moving forward? And Claude maybe can jump in. And,
Sure.
If there's
Great.
Little details.
No worries. So good morning. I'm Cheryl Lianza. As you can probably tell, I'm not Olivia Wein. Olivia is always doing... she had to be called away on family business, so I'm here. And as Jessica said, I work for the United Church of Christ, who has a historic media justice ministry. So the Lifeline program, I think, as we've talked about, was originated in the 80s, and I think the important thing to keep in mind about it is the reason we've created it was because all communications networks are more valuable the more people who are on the network. And not only do we want people from all backgrounds and all areas and rural areas and urban areas to all be connected to that network. So when in the 1980s, when AT&T was getting broken up, for those of us who might remember when that happened, there was a concern that maybe now the safety, there would not be an opportunity for everybody to be connected. So at that time, the program was created to make sure that everybody could get a telephone at their house. And so that's been the program for the first many, many years of, probably the first decade, was that you could get a help defraying the cost, not the full cost usually, but defraying the cost of your telephone service at your home. Then, as wireless became a more popular medium for everybody to communicate, and during, in particular, the Hurricane Katrina crisis was sort of the first real implementation of this, the Bush administration realized we needed to modernize the program. So while the Reagan administration created the program, the Bush administration expanded the program and modernized it at that time to include wireless services. And then, now, in the most recent time, the Obama administration has decided to expand it and modernize it again to include broadband. The one thing remains pretty much the same, which is you get a financial benefit to help defray the costs of product that you buy from a private provider. So, the nickname of the program is Obama Phone, but it's not a government phone. It's a phone that you get by making a contract with a commercial provider the same way you would do that, anybody else would do that. And then there's a certain amount of money that's made available to defray the costs. And today, there are companies have figured out how to really offer a fairly efficient product so that sometimes people can get the mobile phone service for free. And then in the future, as we're moving forward, people will be able to get $9.25 off the cost of their broadband service. So that's been the change over time in the Lifeline program.
Thank you, Cheryl. So on to Jeni. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the what some of the Lifeline packages will look like as we move forward in this new digital age?
Sure. Starting tomorrow, customers have choice, and those choices will include the opportunity to purchase a voice package that will include a minimum of 500 voice minutes a month. They can choose a broadband service package that will include a minimum of 500 megabytes of data. Or if they would like fixed internet service, they can get 150 gigabytes of fixed line service in their home. To satisfy the needs of the consumers in the marketplace today, most service providers will offer a combination of voice, text, and data bundled services together, but those packages will meet the minimum service standards that become effective tomorrow.
Okay, and let's go back to Cheryl. How do folks qualify for Lifeline?
Sure. So you have to show that you're a low-income person, a low-income household, in order to qualify for Lifeline. So the way that you do that is by participating in an existing program. Now, this is one of the things that's changing. The FCC sort of pruned and then expanded and added some programs. So you can participate in the program if you receive federal public housing assistance, if you receive SNAP, which is food stamps for folks who are not up to speed on the new name, Medicaid, or SSI, and then the Veterans Pension and Survivors Benefit are the programs that are available to the whole country. And then there's 4 tribal programs that will enable you to participate in Lifeline, and the tribal benefit is particularly is a little bit more generous, and there's another one, but it's Tribal TANF and a few other, Tribal Head Start. So those are the programs that you can demonstrate that you participate in, and that will prove that you are eligible to receive, your household is eligible to receive a single Lifeline benefit for your household.
Okay, great.
And I should mention that if you can't remember all that, it's on the NHMC little handout, which you have at your seat.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks for the plug.
Oh, no worries. I'm reading from the handout.
Shameless plug. I
can always never remember. There was 8 before, and now there's more and less, and so, you have to keep track of these things.
Okay. So, Claude, can you talk a little bit about the limits of Lifeline benefits?
Yeah, sure. So I think, and we've touched a little bit on this before, but it's only available to low-income consumers, and that gets worked out through eligibility through the programs that Cheryl was mentioning. You can also qualify if your household income is below 135% of the poverty line. And I think it's worth mentioning that the benefit applies to the household. So, I think the term of art that the Commission uses, the independent economic household, which doesn't necessarily mean just one connection per address. Some of the examples that you might think of there are like homeless shelters, where you have multiple, independent economic households under the same roof, or, a example that some may be a little bit more familiar with is you have a roommate, you're 2 independent economic units living at the same address. Both of you in that instance would be able to qualify for a benefit. And then I guess in terms of the limitations on the minimum standards for the program, I think we talked about that a little bit already. It's worth noting that those standards are set to change over time. There's sort of a 5-year period where the voice minutes go up, the broadband data caps go up as well. And in addition to the very helpful information that was on your seat, if you're looking for sort of like a quick primer on the program, lifelinesupport.org is a great place to go to find who's eligible, who's an ETC in your state or in your constituent state, and our Universal Service Administrative Company has recently launched that. It's a great primer to the program in terms of eligibility, the steps you need to go through to apply, and things of that nature. So,
thank you so much, Claude. And we also have that information available in Spanish on our website.
Fantastic.
In a culturally relevant way for folks who are reaching out to service providers who are connecting constituents and appreciate the information in Espanol. So I will go back to Jeni, and some of this may be speculative, but I think everyone wants to know if you have an idea of how much these different kinds of packages might cost, and can you walk us through? I know you can't speak for all the other companies, but what is iWireless working on? What have you heard as someone who's fully immersed in the field?
Yeah, I think it's important that we keep in mind the customers that truly rely on the service and benefit from the product, because many Lifeline customers make tough financial decisions every month. They're forced to choose between putting food on the table, putting a roof over their heads, paying for medication. And in many instances, that doesn't leave a lot of disposable income left over for broadband service. So the great news about the expansion to broadband is that low-income consumers will be able to get at least 500 megabytes of data at no cost. Many of the service providers in the room today have committed to offering a no-cost product starting tomorrow. And customers will have the option to purchase incremental data as they need it at a nominal cost as low as $5 a piece. So the other benefit is that in order to enjoy broadband access, you have to have a device that enables you to access the service. So many service providers offer a free device that is Wi-Fi capable and hotspot enabled. And these consumers are resourceful, so they will seek out opportunities to leverage access to free public Wi-Fi services the same way that postpaid consumers do, and they will maximize that benefit, but we're going to put the device in their hands.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. All right, back to Claude.
I think
a couple of the panelists have sort of touched on the minimum standards, but can you really walk us through, like, in a little more detail about what, from the perspective of consumers who are going to pay, like, what can they expect from their Lifeline providers?
Sure. So, as of tomorrow, if you are subscribing to a mobile broadband service, you will be able to get 500 megabytes of data per month at 3G speeds. If you're subscribing to a fixed broadband product, you will be able to get 150 gigabytes of data at a minimum of 10 megabits per second down and 1 megabit per second up. And if you're applying the discount to a mobile voice product, you will be able to get a minimum of 500 minutes. And as I mentioned previously, this kind of steps up over time, so that by 2019, a voice provider will need to offer a 1,000 minute plan, and a mobile broadband provider will need to offer a minimum of a 2 gigabyte plan.
Excellent, thank you.
And I'll also actually add that part of what the Commission did in the modernization order was require, which I personally thought was pretty cool, was require a handset that's distributed as part of the Lifeline program to both be Wi-Fi capable and to be capable of serving as a Wi-Fi hotspot. So you get the benefit both ways.
Wonderful, thank you. So we'll go to Jeni, then to Cheryl, and then just a couple for all the we'll do a round robin, so to speak, and then we'll go out to the audience. So how soon, Jeni, do you expect that Lifeline Broadband will be available, and do you expect it to reach every corner of the country?
I think that's the goal. It will be available as early as tomorrow when the modernization order becomes effective. Companies that have ETC designation in states can offer broadband service as well. There is a Lifeline broadband petition process where new companies can apply to offer broadband access, and the FCC is reviewing those petitions on an ongoing basis. So we're likely to see more competition in the marketplace, which is a good thing to give consumers more choice. But as early as tomorrow, broadband will be a Lifeline-supported service. So we're excited to be able to formally offer that product and that service to this demographic that desperately needs it.
So how do you address, so I guess this is really to Cheryl and then maybe to Jen, how do we address areas that may not, this came up with one of my colleagues who qualified for Lifeline, and she noted that all of the service providers in her area did not offer a Lifeline option. And so how do we address that? What do we do about the areas that simply don't have a Lifeline option? Cheryl, and then maybe Jeni.
Right, sure. I mean, I think there's a couple things. I mean, first of all, because this program is a public-private partnership, that means that we rely on the private sector to offer products. And so the good news is that there's a financial incentive which companies are uniquely well suited to respond to. They see the financial incentive, thus they enter the marketplace. So we're sort of creating an artificial market incentive for people to enter. So when there are certain areas of the country that don't have it, there's a couple of things. One, there may be a Lifeline provider there that hasn't quite gotten to broadband yet. So I think that's important to put pressure on those companies. And then there's a whole class of providers that have started to offer products that are not Lifeline products, that are low-cost products that are available in many parts of the country. So some people may be familiar with Comcast Internet Essentials. AT&T has an Access product. There's a number of these other products. And those products are not part of the Lifeline program. That's essentially a product that the companies were either required to or decided to offer as part of a merger. But it's essentially they're saying, well, we're just going to offer this product for less money. So really, it's public pressure. So for members of Congress who are concerned, if their constituents can't get access to this program, what they need to do is go to the providers that are in their area, whether an incumbent or a new entrant, mobile or fixed, and say, why are you not participating in this program? Because that's really what we need is all the private providers. It's money that's defraying the cost, and all the company has to do is just take that $925 from the government, from the Universal Service Fund, instead of taking and then defray the cost, the retail cost to the consumer. So it's not a big ask. And so that's really what we need is public pressure from both members of Congress and the public.
All right.
Do you have something you want to do?
The only thing I would add is that if Lifeline service isn't available in your area, it's probably not for a lack of trying. And I would agree with Cheryl to put some public pressure on your congressmen and congresswomen. Call your Public Utilities Commission because there are likely petitions pending before the commission with service providers that want to be offering service in your area.
Great. So one last question for all the panelists, and then we'll take it to the audience, and then we might even finish early, which is always good news here. How can one discover whether Lifeline is available in their area, and what are some of the best practices that you can recommend or resources for those in the audience who want to connect their constituents?
You want us to go down or what?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with Jeni and finish up down here.
We talked about the USAC website, which is a fantastic resource. They have a section called Companies Near Me, and if you click on that link, there's a state map that appears, and if you select your state, they will provide you with a list of the service providers, both wireline and wireless, and provide the contact details for those service providers. You can also redirect to those companies' websites. I will tell you that wireless service providers in particular, most of them participate in community outreach programs. So they have existing relationships with nonprofit and social service agencies that already provide valuable support services to low-income constituents. They are very willing to come out and do mobile enrollment events and educational events. We participate in job fairs and food pantries. We do lots of unique and creative things. We give away free cookbooks that are designed to help folks that are living on a SNAP budget. We work with veterans organizations. So if you have an interest or you have it in an organization, if you contact a Lifeline service provider directly, I'm betting that they would be very, very willing to come and be a partner and work alongside you to let their clientele know about the benefits of Lifeline.
So the best practice that I'll recommend is to just be a good consumer and shop around and be sure that you compare the different products that you might get. So the great part about the Lifeline program, the way it's structured now, is that companies have a real incentive to get out there in the community, and that is something that is an incredible benefit compared with the older versions of Lifeline where companies were sort of forced to offer it like, eat your broccoli, and so very few people were on the program. So now we have a much stronger uptake. At the same time, I think particularly intermediaries and members' offices need to be sure that one product may be a fantastic product for one consumer, but might not be the right fit for another consumer. And because the consumer sometimes is receiving that product without cost or with a very low cost, they don't remember that they're really shopping around with a $9.25 in their virtual pocket. So take that $9.25 and make sure that the amount of minutes that, do you really need minutes? Do you really need data? Do you really need something else? Make sure you understand what the fee structure is and make sure that you kind of consider it as part of your overall situation. If one particular household is on, a non-Lifeline product, they might be using their Lifeline benefit for a mobile phone, or they may decide they want to use their Lifeline benefit for broadband because that's the most valuable thing for their family. So I think really it's the shopping around that is the best practice, and encouraging folks to really look at those different. They may not be paying out of pocket, but they still can get a bunch of different products or different packages in that from even a single provider, and they should really make sure that those are fitting their needs, and making sure that, for example, as we get into this data area, the other thing is same thing, cautious consumer. Help that are going to have to learn, like we've all learned, how much data gets you how much stuff. Right. So if you're a household and you want your child to be able to do homework and you set up your mobile device as a hotspot, like this is fantastic. This is the best thing ever. But let's be sure that, young daughter does not go ahead and start watching YouTube videos and use up all your data when they really need to be doing homework. As a mother of a 5th grader, I'm familiar with this phenomena. So you need to, so those are the couple of things. Is just that you're still a consumer, whether you're benefiting from this program or not. You still are going to have to treat this service as a consumer would.
Yeah, I think I'll just echo both what Cheryl and Jeni said. There's a great resource available for constituents and the congressional offices at lifelinesupport.org and at the NHMC website, and just encouraging your constituents to shop around and find the program that works best for them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience before we adjourn? All right, we're gonna wrap this up early. Remember this, folks. Yes, sir.
I have a question. We talked about broadband and Lifeline today, and the products will be introduced tomorrow. And Cheryl, you pointed out that consumers will need to be mindful of how much certain functions take in terms of megabytes and whatnot. But can any of you address digital literacy and how Lifeline fits in with the challenge that presents? Because many people are new to this, and a couple years ago it was introducing people to mobile phones for the first time. Mm-hmm. Now these carriers will be introducing people to the internet, many for the first time.
I'll just say that, I think as Jeni pointed out, there's a lot of partnerships. So I think in the community, the digital literacy is going to be really important. That digital literacy, the companies are not always the best sources of digital literacy information, and people need somebody with them to help work through different scenarios on their phone, on their mobile device, or in their home internet. So, my really best practice is to partner with organizations in their communities. There's a couple of organizations within our broader coalition of Lifeline public interest advocates. The National Digital Inclusion Alliance is a nationwide network of organizations whose entire mission is to give people digital inclusion expertise. There's many other organizations. From your local public library sometimes has classes. The National Urban League. There's so many different networks around the country. It's not they would really, I think, welcome ways to link together the opportunity to get an affordable service and at the same time teach people how to use that product in a way that meets their needs. I think one of the things that we've really learned over time in this whole last 5 years of trying to get broadband into everybody's home is that most people, and it may seem obvious in retrospect, but most people are going to want to learn how to use a product when they have a particular goal in mind, right? So they're going to go to a job training workshop and then somebody's going to say, this is how you use the internet to find a job. If you say, do you want to learn how to use the internet, it may be too amorphous. So having people learn how to do specific tasks online and then linking up those tasks with, wherever they're going to get that information anyway. And so in all those different community partnership situations, a lot of those community partners are performing some function in the community, and so they probably would welcome very much the opportunity to whether that's hooking up with church and seeing the pastor's sermon online, or connecting with a prayer circle, or, finding out how to get a job, or making sure they know how to get their kids' homework assignment from an online website. All those things, I think people are more focused on being able to do one particular thing than they are trying to absorb the whole internet.
So I'll, from the FCC perspective, one other thing that the Lifeline Modernization Order did this year was to commission a report on non-price barriers to broadband adoption that's due I think December 23rd. So if you're interested in reading more about that, stay tuned.